All right, and welcome back, guys, to the Shadow Mark podcast. We have rebranded. We are Shadow Mark. We've got some new stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm really excited about. We're going to get to that here soon. But like always, I am Derek Thompson. I will be hosting tonight's episode, and with me, as always, is Mr. TJ Davidson.
What up?
And we have a very special guest tonight. I'm super excited to have him back. We had him on the Shadow, or not the Shadow Mark, but the Never Broken podcast, Forever Broken. And we went over a lot of stuff. We're going to kind of recap some of that and introduce the new listeners to our guest and really go over what makes him so special. Our guest tonight is going to be Mr. Nick Wingo, and I'm super excited to have him back. It's awesome every time we get to talk to him. It's incredible. That being said, we've introduced ourselves a million times now. Nick, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of give us your background, your backstory, and we'll just kind of dive in from there.
Totally. I really appreciate you guys bringing me on the podcast. Any chance I have to share my story is a great opportunity. I believe that my story can help a lot of people. So I really appreciate you giving me the time to share it. So a little bit about me. I was in fire for 18 years. Started at the young age of 18. Got myself into something that I really had no clue what I was doing. I thought I was the guy that men were going to want to be and women were going to want to be with. I thought it was going to be paydays and 4 days and all these great things. I was going to be an American hero. And I was coming in post 9/11 era when firefighters were like really praised highly. And when I got into the fire department, I quickly realized that I had no clue what I had signed up for. And the next 18 years of my career became incredibly difficult. I witnessed an incredible amount of pain. I went through an incredible amount of struggle. I lost an incredible amount of coworkers. In fact, I lost half of one crew. One got brain tumor and started having seizures and committed suicide. And the other guy off that crew fell off a roof 6 stories, landed on his back, and killed him instantly.
Jesus.
Yeah, amongst just several other coworkers that I lost to suicide and line of duty deaths, and one to a freak accident. So I've had an incredible amount of experience. I've traveled the world. I went to Uganda on a medical mission. It gave me some perspective as to what true poverty was. I've been a Burning Man, so I've seen the opposite spectrum of life and what that brings. And so I've just had this incredible opportunity in my lifetime to just see and experience a lot of things. And when you have perspective like that, it just changes the way you look at things. It changes the way you look at life. It changes the way that you look at everything, right? And so
Right.
my journey right now is just to share that perspective with other people and just say, hey, you might not be as smart or know as much as you think you do. And there's a lot more to this thing called life. And there's a lot of perspective to be offered by a lot of people. And so that's one of my biggest things is just, I share with people all the time. One of the biggest things that people have is they're not open to other perspectives. That was one of my biggest struggles is not being open to other perspectives. And once I was open to other perspectives, it completely changed my world.
Right, absolutely. So, what all did you learn while you were in Uganda? I mean, that seems like kind of a wild trip.
Yeah, that was one of the most incredible trips I've been on in my lifetime. When I was in Uganda, I went there for a medical mission. We were there going out into remote villages and testing for malaria, testing for HIV. I was with a group of doctors. There was 3 doctors, as well as some nurses, and I was the only medic. And what I witnessed there was what true poverty was, and
Right.
I witnessed what their version of a hospital is versus what, in fact, we were in the hospital doing some training with their staff there, training their staff, and they had a child that came in. This child came in, the child passed away while we were in the hospital, and literally all of the stuff that I would usually have access to, just basic type of things, I didn't have access to, and so our team didn't have access to that stuff. And so there was literally nothing we could do for that child. And that child died. They wrapped him up in a blanket. They got on a motorcycle and they drove away with him. It was one of the most crazy things I've seen in my lifetime. It was just wild. It just gave me this whole new perspective on life. Like, man, In America, we have literally everything at our fingertips, and there is not that all across the world. And so it just changes the way you look at life. It
Yeah,
changes the way you
absolutely.
look at what you have, and just for me, it made me more grateful and had me more thankful for the things that I do have. Because, geez, we have it really good as Americans, and we don't understand that. A lot of us don't understand it, not
Yeah,
fully.
it definitely gives you a new perspective on to really fully appreciate the small things that we have here that not everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, you can look. I mean, I've seen pictures of poverty my entire life. I've seen what poverty, I've seen these African villages and these type of things, but then actually like being in them, it's just so different. It's just hard to explain unless you've actually been in it and
Yeah.
actually been around the people and felt the energy, and it just changes you. It changes you completely.
Oh, absolutely. Uh, so you mentioned we're kind of spoiled in the U.S. and I don't think we really notice that so much, because we live in it. And I think a lot of other countries kind of don't understand that too. So it's really kind of neat to hear that perspective. What you think the most telling, like, what was the most significant thing that you learned while you were there?
Um, I don't know. I can't like pinpoint anything, but I can tell you the most significant experience for me. So we were in one of these remote villages doing a pop up clinic, and we broke for lunch, and we sat in a circle with some chairs, and the village had cooked us lunch, and it was plantains and rice and beans. So something very simple, not any protein really, just a very simple meal. And one of the guys who was a leader set his plate down on the ground, and there was these kids all around, little tiny, skinny little kids, and they were lurking and looking at the plate of food. And he kind of gave like the go ahead for those kids to come and get that food, and those kids literally ran up and took that plate and fought over plantains, rice, and beans. And I was like, holy shit. Like these kids literally, this for them is like as good as it gets. Like this is like top notch. Like they don't get this type of thing. And to me, this is something that I would never usually eat. Like this is something that this is not even like this is not anything that I would really, to be honest, enjoy because it's not something that's in my normal type of diet. It's nothing great. It's just something basic and bland. And I was
Right.
blown away, blown away. I was just like, whoa. It just completely changed my perspective.
Oh, I'm sure, man. I'm sure. Uh, yeah. I mean, that's just wild. So you said you went to Burning Man at one point. How do you
Yeah,
like if you had to? You said that's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. So
complete
I
opposite end of
wanted
the spectrum for
so
sure.
I just kind of wanted to
Yeah,
touch on that. How was
totally.
that experience?
Was that a
Uh,
different kind of trip? Where you?
yeah, so actually, the one of the guys that I worked with, he was in a freak accident. He was on one of those electric skateboards, and his the skateboard kicked out from underneath him. He wasn't wearing a helmet, and he shot straight back and landed on his brainstem, killed him instantly.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and so one of the things he always wanted to do is he always wanted to volunteer at Burning Man as a medic. So me and three other dudes took his ashes to Burning Man and we burned them in the temple. So we went and volunteered as medics and did the volunteer thing to be there because the Burning Man they set up a whole hospital and a whole support system, whole ecosystem while the festival was going on. And so we went to volunteer, and that was man, that was quite the experience. It was,
Oh my God.
I mean, just the people. They say that the average person at Burning Man makes six figures
No
because
kidding.
it's a really pricey thing to do. Like you can't just up and go to Burning Man. I mean, just a ticket to Burning Man is like $500 or like $1,000 or something, and then on top of that, you have to be involved in a camp, and your camp has to bring something to the playa, and it has to be like what you're giving to the playa because everything in Burning Man is free. Like everybody offers something. So you might be offering food one day, or you might be offering like foot massages or whatever it is that you're offering. But everything is free. So it was quite the experience. I have never seen as many male genitalia until I was at Burning Man. Like I saw enough male genitalia at Burning Man for my lifetime, bro. Like
Shit.
I'm
Jo-
I'm, I'm good.
Join the Marine Corps. You'll see way more.
I don't know, dude. It was like every few seconds. I was like, geez, these guys need to put some pants on.
Yeah, I was gonna say this sounds like the Marine Corps. Any
Yeah.
military story kind of starts with. So I had to put my pants back
Jeez.
on,
Right.
and there it was. So that's always fun. You know what I mean?
Hey, but before we get too far past that, I just had an email from at work talking about those electric skateboards and stuff like that. The one-wheeled things or whatever they are. That they're banning them across a lot of different organizations, you know, like the bases and stuff. You're not allowed to use them anymore because I don't remember the numbers, but it was like something crazy. Like they kill so many people per year, you know, because of malfunctions or whatever it is. And I'd never heard of that until recently, you know.
Yeah, they're dangerous. They're dangerous for sure. Killed my buddy. I mean,
That's
literally.
crazy.
Yeah, unfortunate. He was stubborn. Refused to wear a helmet. I don't get it. We're all firefighters, and we see all kinds of messed up shit, and he refused to wear a helmet. It's like, bro, it was definitely a sad deal.
That's just insane to me.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Well, that's like whenever my kids want to go ride their bikes or their scooters and stuff. Like I'll put a helmet on and all my pads and stuff, and I look like a fucking dweeb. But I'm trying to teach my kids that who gives a shit what you look like. You know, you got to be safe and everything.
Right.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, that's kind of the most important thing you can do is set a good example. What else can we do? You know, we're supposed
Totally.
to be the adults of a situation. I still haven't learned that quite yet, but eventually I plan on it.
yeah, I try.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
So that being said, now that we've kind of gone through your past a little bit, let's go into this. Last time we were on, we talked about your book, Building Grit, and we had a great chance to kind of go over it. And I got to read it. It's such an incredible book, and I don't know, for those that get a watch, the book looks like this. It's Building Grit with Mr. Nick Wingo. How to fight fires of PTSD and come out stronger on the other side. Which is just a great thing. So when you wrote the book, kind of what was going through your mind?
Yeah, so the book was born straight out of treatment. So I was in treatment for 35 days, and when I was in treatment, I wrote this passage, and it's called "Who Am I?" And it was this question I was asking myself the entire time I was in treatment. Is I was like, "Who am I? Am I a firefighter, or am I like, who am I truly?" And what I came to is that I just am. And so when I got back from treatment, one of the guys I was there with, he committed suicide. And I knew that I really needed to take this and share this with other people. And
Yeah.
so that's when I wrote the book. I wrote the book to just say, like, hey, you're not alone. You're not alone in this struggle. And one of the things about that guy in specific is that he came to me when we were in treatment, and he said, "Hey, man, it seems like you're really getting this stuff. Like, what is it that you're doing to get this? What is it that you're doing to make change?" And so it crushed me. It crushed me to hear that there was nothing I could do for him. And so I was like, man, if I couldn't do it for him, like, hopefully I can do it for somebody else. Hopefully my words can help somebody else and look at things a little bit differently. And so that's why I wrote the book, because it was important to me to share my journey and just say, like, hey, you're not alone in this thing, and there is hope, and don't quit on yourself.
So how hard was it for you to actually sit down and write this stuff and just know that other people are going to read it and read about you and the struggles that you've been through? And was it hard to put that on paper? Or
No, it was actually really cathartic for me.
Yeah.
For me, like, if you vulnerability for me has never been a difficult thing for me, because when you're fully vulnerable, you can feel no shame. And so, like, if I share of all me to you, and I know that whatever you think about me or whatever judgments you have towards me, those are actually all about you. they have nothing to do about me because I've shared me fully. And so when I share me fully, I can feel no shame. And so there's a freedom in vulnerability. There's a freedom in sharing all of you. And so that's just always how I've looked at my life is that, hey, this is me. And if I'm not for you, that's okay. And whatever you have going on is your own shit. And that's okay too. Like, you don't have to like what I have to say. You don't have to like me. That's fine. Maybe we're not for each other. So that's just the stance I take in my life of, hey, this is me. And I'm going to share all of me. That's who I am.
That's a great way. That's a great way to look at it, man. Like that's really, if you can truly embrace that, then I think you'd be a happier person. And I'm not saying you, I'm just saying like y'all, like in general, everybody,
Totally.
Because I feel like a lot of people, that's what they worry about is how other people see them and like, their view of them and stuff. And that's kind of where I've got to the point where I'm just like, if you don't like me, that's your fucking problem, not mine. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not my issue, that's your issue. So,
Yeah,
but
so
you were a lot nicer about it than than I was. But.
I'm just a little bit on the softer side now. I was a lot more aggressive in nature in the past, and I've just learned how to. Because what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to just embrace people, right? And I want to meet people right where they are. I want to meet them in their space because people are not going to be able to meet me in my space. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. So I meet people in their space, and I make them feel safe, and make them feel seen, and make them feel heard, and then this way they can be them unique. They can be fully themselves, because it takes an incredible amount of work to get to where I am. It's a daily practice for me. It's not something that just happened, right? So I just want to help people. I just want to help people look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to dive into that, and we'll dive into that next. But retrospectively, like looking back at the book, like what have you taken from it? What do you think people have taken from the book?
Well, I wrote the book with like no expectation whatsoever. I just wrote this book, and man, the responses I've gotten have been incredible. Like, I think I really still don't even know how much impact I've already had with it. I don't think I may ever really know what my impact has been with it. But I mean, I've heard often, like, man, this just changed the way I was thinking. I heard from one guy that if he would have had the book in his hands when he went through his darkest hour, that he feels like he wouldn't have tried to commit suicide. I mean, I've had like nurses reach out to me and say, man, I know I'm not a firefighter, but this has helped me out so much and just the way I look at things because I've dealt with so much death. And so, honestly, I just recently went back and read my own book, and I was like, damn, I should really take my own advice sometimes. Like, I got some really good shit to say, but damn, I cannot seem to fucking do it for myself. Like, so trust me, like, yeah, I wrote the book and I spilled all this shit, but I still fucking struggle. Like, I still struggle. I still go through this shit. People think that you do something like this, you write a book or whatever, you're this incredible person. Okay, I have shit the same as you do, and I put my pants on the same way that you do, and I fucking struggle, man. I mean, I'm just more honest and real with where I'm at. I just had one of the most incredibly difficult couple months I've had in a while. I just embrace it. This is me. This is where I'm at. I mean, I was in the shower the other day. After I do the sauna in the morning daily, and then I go into the cold shower. And I was in the shower, and I was just sobbing. Like, I was just crying. Like, I had so much pent-up shit. And I was crying, and this thought came to me, and I was like, man, I'm working through this so that I can help other people work through this too. And so I look at my pain as an opportunity to share with other people. Instead of looking at my pain as something that's going to hold me back, right? That's what I've chose to look at it as. Because you have a choice in how you look at it. The pain is coming one way or another. You're going to experience it. And the feeling of pain is the same for everyone. The feeling itself is no different. Now, the circumstance or the experience to get there may be very different. What I think is those of us that had a more difficult experience, we're actually called to come down to the level of those that have maybe not had as difficult an experience and help them through it and say like, hey, I understand this pain that you're feeling. I understand it deeply. Here's a different way to look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just a fucking. I mean, that's incredible. And then we can. It's also a good taking off point. So you've got your kind of new business, and what you're doing a lot with, it seems like, is helping people and like trying to kind of find themselves and do that inner peace kind of workings. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your new stuff you got going on and all that jazz?
Totally. Yeah, so now there's a couple things I'm doing. I'm doing men's retreats. I'm doing 3 backpacking retreats this summer. My first one's going to be June 8th through 10th this summer coming up. And in those, where my core is the breath work. So I have gone through an incredible amount of therapies. You know, I've done about every therapy you can think of. And the breath work has actually been one of the most powerful modalities I've found. And so over the past couple of years, I've traveled to Spain, Mexico, and learned from the most influential people in the space. And so now I take that and I coach the breath work, and I teach people how to use their breath to slow down and just come to themselves and just get grounded. Because so often all that's going on is that you're in your monkey mind and you can't seem to slow down. And so what I've learned is, for me at least, and I think this is true for most people, is that when you just take the opportunity to just slow down and just be more mindful of what's happening and give everything more attention, things seem to be better. Things seem to shift into a better state.
Absolutely. So you said, you're working on breath work and you're working on like just slowing down life. How has it helped you?
I mean, it's been crucial for me. It's been crucial in my day to day. Like my wife, this is something that I still have with my wife. She says that God can take anything. She could take my post-traumatic stress. And I'm like, yeah, I think he could. But I personally think that this is something that I'm just going to manage. Now, hey, could God take it away from me someday? Yeah, God can do anything. Do I think he's going to? I don't know. Maybe it's my own self-limiting beliefs. Maybe that's something I should get curious about. However, for me, I feel like at this point in my life, it's something I manage. And so I'm learning just to manage my post-traumatic stress. And the best thing I've learned on how to manage my post-traumatic stress is to slow the fuck down. Because post-traumatic stress, you're like amped up, right? You're either into depression, which is being caught up in the past, or you're having anxiety, which is being caught up in the future. And so what you're doing is, in depression or anxiety, is you're being completely absent of the moment. So when you're slowing down, what you're doing is you're learning how to become present right here, right now. And to do that, you do it through mindfulness practice, through your breath, through the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things I see, 4 things I hear, 3 things I can smell, 2 things I can touch, and 1 thing I can taste. And so when you learn these practices to slow down, it actually brings you back inward and grounds you and helps you be present in the moment.
That's incredible. I mean, you're right. And I mean, you kind of answered all my questions because I was going to just kind of ask you, like, how'd you get there? But you kind of answered those. And you led into another thing that I really wanted to talk about is PTS. I mean, we're just calling it PTS. Why don't we add that D on there? You know what I mean?
Well, I used to have the thing where I was okay with the PTSD because it's post-traumatic stress disorder. But the problem with the D is that it's not a disorder. It's something that just has happened to you. You're not in disorder. You're not disordered, right? That's not who you are. You're just having a thing. You're having post-traumatic stress because of an event. So the disorder really, like, it labels you as that, like, you're basically, I mean, I feel like, to me, it's like you're not fixable. Like, if I have a disorder, then I'm not fixable, right?
Right.
But there are things you can do to manage this and get out of it. Like, I mean, there's times where I'm doing incredible. There's times when I'm doing incredibly shitty. there's also times where I'm doing really incredible, right? Like, so it's all time and effort, and I literally spend 3 to 4 hours a day learning about things, learning new ways, practicing this stuff. It takes work. It takes work.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Yeah.
does. And
Well, it's like Derek was saying. It's not a disorder; it's a crisis. You know, don't always listen to the D. It'll lead you. It'll get you in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like
Totally.
the one thing that's got me in more trouble than anything is either alcohol or the D. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Totally.
wait, hold on. Let's just rewind that sentence. You said it's either alcohol or my D that gets me in trouble.
I'm telling you, like those are facts. You can take that to the bank.
Oh lordy, yeah. I don't know. We're trying to be, like just comedy kind of deal too. So it's always fun to be able to laugh and joke about everything. But yeah, I really like what you said there, where the disorder implies that we can't fix it, and I'm 100% with you. I don't agree with that, and I think PTS, it really stems from like a situation we've all been in. We all have different levels that will get us to that point, and it's part of kind of the like, don't judge each other. There's no reason to be judgmental of one another, because what triggered me in my situation is going to be different from what triggered you. It's going to be different from what triggers TJ. And when we throw a disorder in there, we're just saying that you're broken, and you're not.
Totally.
You're not broken. You just went through something that changed how you perceive life. Which brings us back to that perspective that you were talking about with the Uganda thing. When you deal with a different perspective, it really changes how you see things. It has to change how you see things. If it doesn't change how you see things, you're not growing. So
Totally.
It's kind of crazy to me to sit there and say that everyone's broken that has PTS, because that's not. It just doesn't seem real to me. Like, if more people that didn't have it, if more people that didn't understand it, would take the time to sit there and genuinely put themselves in our shoes, then you can change a lot.
People don't want to put themselves in our shoes, though, because they think they're tougher than that. Like, oh, hell, I wouldn't have any problem doing that. I wouldn't have any issues running into this burning house and trying to save people, or, if those damn bad guys are shooting at us, I'd kill them all. That's just how people are, guys anyways. They're all
Well, those guys are
tough.
generally those guys are generally the most wounded.
right.
Like, the guys that are doing those are the guys that are the most wounded. They've had the most shit happen to them, right? And so now they think they're tough. They think they're bad, and that's how they're covering their wounds, and it's toxic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what. And it's like, that's kind of the thing that leads into like toxic masculinity or whatever, where like people are like judging certain people. It's like, that's a very select few people that are that way, like most people I think sit there and they're like, no, I wouldn't do that. Like, hands off.
Well,
Right.
Tops to you. I think most people are good. I'm pretty optimistic, like looking at life like that. And like, I don't think that the majority of people are like that. I don't think the majority of men are like that. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of people do sit there too, and they go, you put yourself in that situation, you did to yourself.
Yeah, I didn't really think that I believe in toxic masculinity, honestly, because I think you're either a good person or you're not. And if you are what people consider toxic masculinity, that usually goes into like beating your wife or something like that. Well, that guy's just a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? He's not being too masculine, because there's nothing manly about laying hands on a woman just for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing manly about that. So you can't put that in toxic masculinity.
Right.
There is, the thing is there's masculine and feminine energy. It's not toxic. There's toxic people. There are absolutely toxic men, 110%.
Yep.
But masculine energy in and itself is not the toxic thing. It's the man and how he's showing up. And and honestly, and if he's showing up like that, he's not being masculine. He's being a piece of shit.
Yeah,
That's just truth.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I brought it up, the toxic masculinity thing, is to kind of lead into, like, men's health, and not just men's health, but, like, kind of God's image of what men should be too. That like whole thing as well. Nick, I know you've been involved with Crucible and everything like that too, so you kind of know a little bit more what I'm kind of leaning towards, I think. But like you just said, man, like there's masculine traits, there's feminine traits. Those are natural things that come with our sex. I don't think one thing makes it toxic. I don't think the general consensus is toxicity. I think it's just people that want something to bitch about. You know what I mean? But that being said, let's talk a little bit about men's health, and then we can kind of dive into. It was another thing I want to talk about. It's just like God and how He's gotten us, or gotten you, where you are, and kind of just talk about the whole thing. I mean, because going through Crucible for me was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you know a little bit about that and how that works, and I just think it'd be really good to talk about for people.
Totally. Here's where I'm at with men in general. Is that if you're a man and you're listening to me right now, I want you to just really slow down and really hear me out. And the thing that I'm telling you to start out with is just be open to what I have to say. Because one thing that I've learned is that the first part of my life, I was very closed. I wanted nothing to do with anybody else's opinions. I was right. It was always me and my opinions, and nobody else knew what the fuck they were talking about. Let me ask you a question, and just ponder on this for a second. How is that serving you in your relationships in your life? How is that showing up, and how are the people around you showing up? Are you in a constant state of being defensive and having arguments and being angry and pissed off? Because if you are, you're probably very closed, and that's okay. What the biggest part of my journey has been learning how to embrace the feminine piece of me. And so what does that look like? That looks like actually allowing the lover within me to arise and be part of my masculine energy. Because you can never be a fully masculine man if you cannot embrace the feminine piece of you. Because there is a time where that feminine piece of you is essential with your kids, with your wife, with those who are the most close to you. If you are not allowing that piece of you to come out, you are robbing yourself from a blessing. And you are causing yourself further issues and further problems. And so I would highly encourage any man to learn how to embrace the lover within them. If you look at some of the some of the warriors that were the greatest of all times, like the Zen. If you look at the Zen, the samurai, they studied Zen. Okay, the samurai warriors. They were some of the greatest warriors of all time, and they studied Zen. They studied this slower, like embrace this loving, soft piece of them. And they were able to, from this calm peace, bring out the warrior within when he was needed. And so the greatest warriors of all time were the ones that actually understood how to slow down and just be present in the moment and embrace the lover and pull out the warrior when needed. I think that that's what the true masculine man is, and I think that we are missing it. And I don't think there's a lot of men that are doing that. Now, there are some, and I believe that there's an uprising of men that are. But I think that those of us that are meant to go to the men that are not and say, hey, like we live in a weak-ass fucking culture these days. Like I just saw a thing, they said that the average 18-year-old kid going into the college right now has the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old. Why? Because next day air for things, you get whatever the fuck you want in one day, you don't have to fight for anything, you don't have to have any type of resiliency at all, right? Nothing. You have to have no resiliency. And we are, as a culture, we are dying because of it. And so there needs to be an uprising in men who are masculine men, who are warriors, who can come up and love these kids and bring them up and teach them. It's so important, and we're missing it. We're missing it.
Oh, you are absolutely right. I'm so excited about this. You said resiliency. I was literally, as you were talking about that, that's what I wrote down. I wrote down resilience. And my big question, how do we get there? You know what I mean? How do we build that? Because for me, I personally think that it comes from putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations. It comes from being willing to do stuff that we wouldn't normally do. Like, we have to train our muscles to be stronger. We have to train our heart to be a little bit better. You know, everything we do for the body and the physical health that we have is some sort of training. I run to help my heart. I run to help my lungs. I lift weights to help my muscles. I do all these things. How do we build mental resiliency? How do we help these kids get to a point where they can actually deal with situations? And what it comes down to for me is putting them in difficult situations. If we're not sitting there and having to be uncomfortable, we're not learning. And that's how
Totally.
I do it anyway. So that being said, with resilience, how do you look at it? How do you think we get there? Because I've listened to like 800 things now, I think. Something like that. And every single one of them talks about how we're failing to have resiliency in today's modern era.
Yeah, I think I'm 100% with you. It's being uncomfortable. It's getting uncomfortable with getting comfortable with uncomfortable. That's why the biggest part of my practice is my morning routine. So there's 3 things that really help me get really uncomfortable: holding my breath, sitting in the sauna, and getting in cold water. Those 3 things daily make me uncomfortable as shit. But I tell you what, I'm learning more and more how to be comfortable with that uncomfortable. And with that I become more resilient with my mental health. Because I can go to that like, okay, this feeling in my body of uncomfortable, this really feels familiar to me. I think honestly what's happening is that these kids have never felt that uncomfortableness in their body. And so when they start to feel that uncomfortableness, they don't know what to do with it. Right? And so then they shut down, they freak out, they have all these different things that happen because they've never had that feeling before. And so that's why, that's one of my biggest things. Like, you come spend a weekend with me, I am definitely going to make you feel uncomfortable, both emotionally and physically, right? Because emotionally uncomfortable too is a thing, right?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
just as essential. As I am absolutely, I tell men I love them all the time. Like, hey, I love you, brother, and I hug them, and I will make them feel uncomfortable as shit because I am a teddy bear and I am a lover, and I'm 220 pounds of muscle, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna hug you. Like,
Me
you may
too.
not like it, but I'm definitely hugging you. Like, I'm gonna give you some love, and it's all
I'm
part
the
of
same
it.
way. I just did
It's all
this
part
to
of it, right?
one of the guys around here in town. I sat there and they were like, somebody was like, man, he's been in a bad mood. And I sat there and I saw him and I was just like, come here, buddy. And I just gave him a big old hug. And I was like, man, you ain't getting away from this. And I could tell he was just awkward as shit about it. But I was like, oh, I'm just going to I was going to squeeze you until you can't be mad anymore.
Hey, one thing
So
about
I
like
love
building
doing that.
resiliency though with your kids is let them do things on their own. Don't just sit there and baby them all the time, or what do they call them, helicopter parents and stuff like that. I get a lot of shit because I don't want my kids playing into the road or something like that. And I'm like, that's different. Like, I'm not being stupid, and I'm trying to keep my kids from getting ran over. But like, if your kid's doing some dumb shit and you've told them, hey, don't do that, and they keep doing it, and you've explained to them like you're going to get hurt because of this, then if it's not going to seriously injure them, let them do it. Let them fuck around and find out.
Well,
then
look,
guess what?
I've
They're
been telling
going to learn.
Totally. My kid just broke his arm. I've been telling him to tie his damn shoes. Guess what? Didn't tie his shoes, tripped over shoelaces. Broke
What
his
a
arm.
terrible way to break your arm.
What a terrible... And he's embarrassed. He's embarrassed as shit about it. And I'm like, well, you
What I
tie
tell
your
you?
shoes now?
Well, now you're uncomfortable. physically and mentally, because you've done tripped over your shoelace. That's embarrassing.
Totally. Poor little dude. I feel for him, though.
Man, I feel bad for him, too. That's rough. So, do you
It
think
is.
that kind of this world that we've built right now, where it's based off like participation trophies and all that stuff, do you think that's kind of led to like this lack of resiliency? Because I do. I mean, if I'm
Totally.
being honest, I think we're just teaching kids that like I feel like we're really trying to be like you shouldn't be uncomfortable. I feel like we're doing the opposite of what we should be doing.
Yeah, I think it's bad all the way around. Like accountability, personal accountability, resiliency, everything. Like there's nothing good that comes from that. Like you get your feelings hurt because you suck at basketball. Well, guess what? You suck at basketball. You need to know that you suck at basketball. Fucking try harder, and maybe you won't suck. And if you still suck after trying your best, then go do something else, or just stay there and suck. I mean, that's just the way the world works.
Totally. I think it's just like my honest opinion, and this is this would be a long conversation. I just think it's a sign of the times. Like I think this is a sign of the times. We're headed in a direction that's not good, and it's just all part of it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It'll all come back
absolutely.
around like everything else. We'll realize, like, man, why the fuck did we do that? Like that was a mistake. That set us back
I
for
don't know.
50 years. But here we are now. We
I
won't do
don't,
that again.
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. It seems like the shift that we've had in the world, COVID, all these things that's happened over the past few years, it seems like things are just continually shifting in not a good direction, in my opinion. I could be
Yeah, I'm
wrong,
with
but
you, man. Yeah, I'm with you, and I like the idea that TJ's kind of on there, where like we're being optimistic, and hopefully, like it comes back to. But I think you're right. I mean, if you look like historically, I mean, history does repeat itself. So, I mean, in some shape or form, I feel like it'll come back to a little bit of a more realistic skew. But at the same time, it's evolving all the time. We're humans. We evolve. We do this thing, and I think you're absolutely right. I don't think we're heading in a positive direction, and the only way for me to change
I
that is
I hope
by
I'm
doing what
wrong.
we've been doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I hope I'm
me too,
wrong.
man.
I hope I'm wrong because I don't want it, but I am. Man, the way stuff has gone has just not been pretty. It has been a
Yeah,
really no good, no good at all.
it's like you get. I just saw a thing. It was like we take one step forward, and then we end up getting like knocked back 10,000 steps. And I was like, I mean, that just seems like how it is. It's like
Totally.
we try to do something good, and as soon as we do something good, we just like smash it with a bunch of dumb shit. It's like, why did we do that? It doesn't make any sense. Uh, but that's all besides the point, and kind of gets away from the thing. I wanted to talk. This was just a side note because I've seen a lot of it. Is the ice water thing?
Hmm.
Breathing. I'm all behind. Sauna. It's totally behind. I love the sauna. Ice water. How do you do it?
Breathing, man, just breathing, just embracing the suck. So for me, like the biggest thing, for me, I go straight from the sauna to the cold water. So there's some studies around the contrast, and the contrast is actually they do the contrast therapy for post traumatic stress, and I found that the contrast going from the hot to the cold like that is it's pretty powerful. And I tell you what, man, you go from 160, 165 degree sauna for 35, 40 minutes straight into cold water for 5 minutes. After that, you're like, you don't need a cup of coffee. You are ready to go. Like, let's go. Let's get some shit done.
It's actually good for muscle recovery too, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it helps with your immune system. It helps with your overall wellness. It helps with all kinds of stuff.
I know
Yeah,
it helps
it's
with
really good.
inflammation.
Yep.
I mean, it's just there's a
Yeah.
lot of big things there. I just get a kick out of it, man. I've seen so many people doing this ice bath stuff, and it's crazy because I'm such a wimp when it comes to like cold, like hot. I'll do all day. Cold, I suck at it. I'm terrible at it. So like me getting in the,
That's
I'll
just
get in the sauna and I'll get in a cold shower, and I'm just like, I hate this. It sucks so bad, and I feel like such a wimp because I know
This
it's
is
like
not for
lukewarm
me.
water.
part of that. Part of that though is like part of that is so the biggest part of that, to be 100% honest with you, that biggest thing for you is what you're telling yourself. So
Yeah,
you're
that I
already
hate it.
setting yourself for failure. So releasing the judgment towards it and releasing what you have already predetermined about it and just embracing it. So one of the things I've learned in my practice is to really just instead of like okay, so this is a like this is like even with like an emotion. Okay, you have what you perceive to be a negative emotion arise, and you're like your tendency is to not give it attention at all and like push it away because you don't want that emotion, right? So it's like, no, I'm going to stop this emotion, and that's actually counterproductive. The correct way to do it and the quicker way to work through that is to actually give it 100% attention. And so when you give it all of your attention and you focus on it, you can actually notice the half-life of it reduce that much quicker. Because what thoughts just arise, right? So thoughts, they arise and then they drift away on their own. You don't really control that thought. It just happens and it goes away and drifts away on its own. So when you give it the focus and 100% attention to it, you'll actually be able to watch it drift away even that much quicker.
That's insane to me. I'm just like, it made so much sense as you were explaining it to me. And I'm just like, yeah, that's what I need to do. I love that. That's incredible.
I feel like the hard thing about that is you don't want to focus on that though. Like you want to just push it away because that's what's easier to do is to, not deal with it right now. Like that's why you are in a bad place, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to confront it.
Right.
Right up from the get-go,
But here's the thing is that when you don't confront things, what happens? Those things they're gonna swing back around and punch you in your face. And so it's your choice. You can either deal with it now, or you can wait. And it is going to swing back around, and it's going to come right in front of you again. And it's going to swing back around, and it's going to come right in front of you again. And it's going to become incredibly more difficult every time it swings around because it's going to gain momentum, and it's going to gain power over you because because it's owning you. It's owning you, and it's controlling you, right? Whereas if you just deal with it front on right away, like, no, motherfucker, you don't control me. This isn't who I am. You don't define me. You don't get to do that to me, right? Just own it.
Oh man, that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, just embracing my emotions is something that I think we all need to do. Releasing judgment, again, something hugely important that I need to do.
Yeah, I need to work on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's deep, and I love it. You know
me too, man. The only reason I know is because I go through this shit. And it's a practice. And I don't do it right all the time. I'm doing it better. I'm more often than not, I'm getting it. But guess what? I still fail a shit ton. I fall flat on my face. I get up a lot quicker. I don't stay on the ground as long as I used to. But I still fall.
Yeah, I mean, we all fall. We're always falling. I mean, we're going to. And it's kind of like the Rocky line where it's like, it's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how you get up, Rocky. It's kind of that
That's
thing.
right.
It's how many times you get up. And we always have to get back up. And, it's just like we've already kind of talked about. I don't think we're teaching that. And we need to do a better job about it. We need to teach people that it's okay to fail. You're going to fail.
It's guaranteed.
Just a natural part of life. Yeah. If there's one thing, like there's what? They're always like, there's two guarantees in life that you'll be born and you'll die. And it's like, yeah, but you're guaranteed to fail. You're guaranteed to succeed. I mean, there's a ton of guarantees out there. And we're all going to fail, but we have to be able to find that peace and comfort in that. We have to embrace that. We have to embrace that we failed and that we screwed up, and we have to learn from it. And it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's important to know when to embrace it. Like we've already been talking about, don't just keep pushing it back and pushing it back. Like when that shit happens, you need to face it right then and start getting a hold on it before it just grows and grows and gets too big for you to handle.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
100%.
We've talked about it a lot so far. I think we talked kind of men's health. We talked Uganda, Burning Man. We've talked about breath work. We talked about all this stuff. How has God gotten you through all of this? Like, how has God helped you? How has religion been a part of it. And like I said, I bring this up because I know you've been involved in Crucible and all that. And there was another part that you talked about, the lover and the warrior. And I know, what's that book? It's like Lover, Magi, Warrior.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know which one you're talking about, though.
I can't remember what the four things are, and I know we talked about it at Crucible. It's such a huge part, but yeah, I'd love to know how God got you where you are, and how He can help everyone. I mean, how He's helped you, how we build our relationship.
Totally. So it's about surrender. It's about surrendering yourself. And so for me, my biggest thing has just been surrendering, and not. So often I want to be the one in charge of my life, and I want to take the wheel, and I want to do the things, and so I go out seeking all these things. But the reality is that when I just let Him take the wheel, and I let Him guide me, and I let Him run the show, life is much better. I mean, I think that's just it. It's just I was just here. I have this. It's so funny. I was reading this morning, and it is Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and Your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I mean, that for me, that sums up everything. Like, that sums it up. He's there for us in our fear, in our worry. He is there. He is constantly there for us, no matter what, right? If you look at the Bible and you go through all the stories, they all had an incredible amount of struggle. Like, all of the stories from the Bible are people who struggled immensely. I mean, Abraham and Sarah. God came to Abraham and told him that he was going to have a son, and it was 23 years before he had a son, and he was 100 years old. Right? You look at Moses, and you look at, he was like, God, use anybody else other than me, because I can't speak. I can't do it. It's not me, anybody else. And so when you actually go through and read the stories of the Bible and you actually understand them, you can see that God uses the people who had the most incredible amount of struggles. They were in the deepest places. They were not the best people, right? They were the ones that were called. And I believe that I'm called. And so God He is here. Now, are there times where I go through difficulties and He feels distant? Absolutely. He feels distant, though, because it's me. It's not Him. He's always right here. It's always what I'm doing. So.
Yeah, I believe you were too, Nick. I believe you were picked out too. I think you have an incredible message and an incredible story, and I love every second of it. It's just incredible. And it's funny. It's funny to see how, like, we kind of talked about the perspective and the whole, like, being a lover and a warrior. And it's like you said, you're a 220-pound guy. You're bald, you got a beard, you got tattoos. You're like this tough-looking dude, but it's like, you're the nicest human being out there. You're one of the most genuine people out there, and it's awesome to see, and I think we need to be more like that. I try to emulate that myself. I'm a big dude, tattoos. I'm the same way, man. And I love people. I want to be there for them. I want to help them. I want to do everything I can. I think that's something we all need to do. TJ's the same way,
Totally.
We sit there and we look at him, He's one in a million.
I'm just a big old pussy, though.
But that being said, no, TJ, I'm sure you have some questions, and I've kind of led this whole thing up till now. So let's kick it over to you. Let's let you ask some questions. Let you dig in deep, dig your claws in there, man.
Yeah, man. So you wrote Building Grit, and I thought you were working on another book also. Where is that going somewhere? Are you still writing it, or have we?
So that's all in process. This is
Okay.
kind of this is something I'm doing. Just that book is going to be probably another year out, because it's
Okay.
just I'm gathering all the things that I've been learning, post fire department and post journey, of like what's helped me,
Right.
and I've gone down into some deep rabbit holes that were really probably not for me, that I got distracted with, and so now I'm just coming back to more center and like really figuring out what direction I'm going with myself. So
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit before the show. The best route to get your book is from Amazon, right? Do you have it? Do you have any audiobooks or anything like that?
I haven't done the audio yet. That's something on
Okay.
my list.
Okay. So
I
for
hope it's you. I hope it's you doing the audio.
hell yeah, for our listeners though, I highly recommend you check out Building Grit, and you can get it off Amazon. It's a great book,
It's incredible.
and whenever you get this other one published and out and everything, then we'll definitely push that one out to the people as well.
I appreciate
Yeah,
you guys.
it's awesome because like I remember kind of reading through the book and it's kind of like opening it up and peeking at it. And it's stuff you mentioned. The pain you feel is the same others feel.
Oh man,
It's chapter 8. It's stuff like that. I mean, it's just incredible. Holding death in your hands, learning the true value of life. You're not going to find this stuff anywhere else. I mean, you're just not. You got to talk to somebody that's been there, been through it, and getting the opportunity to talk to somebody with such large perspective on life. I know you've done so much. I've been there. I had the pleasure of being EMT firefighter for 10 years too. I loved every second of it. I'm trying to get back to it. I just, it's great. It's awesome to see somebody that's been there, been through that stuff, and write about it and tell the story and really get it out there. I love it.
there's something else that I wanted to bring up, and I forgot to until just now. You had said something about sanitized statements when
That's it.
talking to your significant other, whenever you're having issues, and they may think that they're the problem, but it's really not them. It's you trying to deal with your own stuff. You don't know how to talk to them about it. Can you elaborate a little bit on the sanitized statements?
Yeah, totally. So, like in my journey, I didn't talk to my wife because I was highly afraid of projecting trauma onto her because of her past trauma. And so I thought what I was doing was I was protecting her from bringing home any of my shit. The reality of what I was doing is causing further problems because she wanted to be there for me, and I really needed to offload. And so sanitized statements, what that is that, okay, you go to work and you have this incident and you are having a really bad day. The most important thing for you to do is when you get home from shift with your spouse is come to them and say, hey, I had a really bad shift. And the reason I had a bad shift is because I dealt with a dead kid, or I dealt with a very gruesome accident, or I dealt with, a really difficult scene around some things of people that were familiar to me, or whatever it is, and that's all you have to keep it at, because you're not projecting anything onto them, and you're giving your
Right.
spouse the opportunity, or your family, whoever you're living with, to be there for you and have them understand that, hey, I had a really rough day and I saw some stuff that was not great. And so this is where I'm at.
Uh, yeah, that I'm so glad he brought that up. That was one of the biggest things I took from it too. I think it's hugely important to be able to have that communication with your significant other or somebody that you love in your life because they want to help us. And
We have to
if
give them
don't
the
give them the
opportunity.
opportunity, yeah,
Absolutely.
then, we're not helping. So that's incredible. I mean, I love it. I'm so glad you remembered that, TJ.
Yeah, well, I've actually been sent it to a lot of the soldiers and stuff that I work with and everything, and because they have a hard time talking to their wives, like, well, shit, like I've gone through this, like I can't tell them that, when I killed this guy and then like the way he sounded when he was dying, and you don't have to tell them that. Just say like, this is the situation, this is what happened. I'm not happy about it. I'm trying to deal with it on my own, and that's enough. Like they can understand like, oh shit, I can see why you're struggling with that. You don't have to go into great detail, or like on an accident, like just say like a car accident, right? And you don't have to explain to them like in detail what these people look like and how bad it is. Just sanitized statements, like you said, just kind of a blanket of what happened and that it's not good, and you need some time to decompress from it, and they're not the problem. It's just something that you have to deal with. I'm trying to figure out how I'm handling it emotionally, and I'm sorry that I'm not being very open or very happy, or just I'm not trying to not talk to you. It's just that I'm trying to figure out my own shit right now.
Totally. 100%.
Trying to take notes here. I'm killing myself. Was it Lover King Magi Warrior? Does that sound right?
That sounds right. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's killing me, man. It's going to drive me nuts. Anyways, it's driving me crazy. We kind of talked about pretty much everything, man. I mean, for the most part. At least in my notes, anyway.
Sweet.
Other than mental health, which we've kind of dived in on the whole episode, but is there anything specific that you would have to say about like mental health and where we're at now, and how to deal with like the PTS, and how do we sit there and how do we change the stigma that surrounds it? How do we change this? I mean, for us, we've kind of explained how we want to do it. We want to make it a natural part of conversation. How would you like to see mental health change?
I mean, I think that's just the most important piece, is just actually really talking about it, because that's what's not happening, is people just aren't talking about it, right? And so it's more conversations like this. It's more sharing. It's more being vulnerable. It's more being open and honest. And as those conversations are had, that's where change happens. So That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's been awesome to have you. I don't want to keep you all night. It's not late in the evening, but I do want to give you some free time for your evening too. It's been an hour, and that's usually about what we run anyway. And I'm sure we're going to have you back anyway. It's awesome having you every time. TJ, do you have any more questions for him? Or?
Yeah, so on your social medias and stuff, what are you're on Facebook, right? Are you just Nick Wingo on Facebook?
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, the easiest way to find me is just nickwingo.com, and then that's got all my socials on it. So if you go to nickwingo.com, it's got my Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that jam, so you can find me there.
His OnlyFans, where he sells feet pics.
Totally.
Wait, did you say feet pics? God damn,
that's what I'm talking about.
I've been selling beet pics. I've been growing beets, and maybe that's where I'm failing.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
Maybe.
Son of a bitch. Isn't it like farmersonly.com? That's not what that was about?
It's got corn videos.
Go to Cornhub.
Nice.
Yeah, go to Cornhub. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't want to keep you all night, man. I really appreciate you coming back on and talking to us and sharing your life story. I mean, it's incredible. I love it every time. I love getting to talk to you. We'll be in touch with you about some of this breathing techniques and your new business that you got going on. And I mean, it's just, I'm always excited. I always love talking to you. I always take so much from it. I learn something new every time. And that being said, we always close out the episodes with what we learned from this episode. And we'll start with you, Nick, if you're happy to join in on what you took from tonight's episode.
Let's see. I don't know. We talked about so much. I'm just, every time I do this, I'm just reminded how much impact I'm having that I don't even realize. And I think that's important for other people to know too. Like, you are probably making way more impact than you even recognize or notice. And so just a reminder not to quit and to keep on stepping forward, because what you're doing is impacting more people than you probably think it is.
It's awesome. I'll go second, and we'll finish it on TJ tonight. I mean, the biggest thing I took from the whole thing, when you said release judgment and embrace your emotions, that's something that I immensely need to work on. I loved that statement. I loved the idea of it, and I'm looking forward to really doing that and trying to do a better job at embracing my emotions and releasing the judgment I have towards going into a situation. It's it's something that controls me, and I hope that just by doing that I can get a little bit more control of my life back. So I'm excited about it. TJ, what do you got?
The one thing that really stuck out to me was whenever you are dealing with an emotion, and instead of suppressing that and let it swing back around and just build up to come back and punch you in the face, you need to face it head on. Kind of like bullies, right? Like, it's just better in school if you just confront your bully. Like, you're being your own bully, like you're your own mental bully, if you just suppress that and let it just build up until it comes back and smacks you in the face. I just think that's one thing that stuck out to me was it's just something I need to work on also with whenever I'm dealing with something. Instead of just kind of pushing it away, I just need to, face it head on and throw down and see where I come out on the other side, instead of pushing it back and letting it fuck me up.
Every time, man.
Totally.
That being said, check us out. We've got the Shadow Mark group, Society of Misfits. We're going to be getting a lot more stuff going here in the near future. We're going to have like stickers and shirts, website, and all that stuff. We'll let you guys know on the Facebook. I'm trying to get Instagram, all that stuff going. I'm excited about it. If you guys ever need anything, reach out to any of us. I'm pretty positive Nick would join in on that too. If you need anything, feel free to reach out to one of us. We'll get back to you as soon as we can and make sure you're all right. I mean, that's what we're here for.
On top of that, before we go, also reach out and touch somebody that you've worked with, somebody you've served with, somebody you hadn't talked to in a long time. Just shoot them a text, hit them up on Facebook. Just hey man, what's going on? Like, how you been? Just try to reconnect, or somebody that you talk to or you share memes with a lot. Just reach out and touch somebody. You never know when that might make a difference.
Yeah. Don't ever let somebody fight alone. That's going to be the big thing here now. Yep. Never fight alone. Okay? Yeah, you guys are part of our family. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in this week. I appreciate it. Thanks, Nick, for your time. TJ, thank you for your time as well. Always. I love you guys. And that being said, we'll wrap this up, man. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks, guys.